Pittsburgh Symphony Composer of the Year, Stephen Stucky, is with us at Heinz Hall once again. He's written a new piece, a world premiere on commission from the Pittsburgh Symphony. It'll be done here and in New York when the orchestra is on tour at Lincoln Center, Avery Fisher Hall. What's it sound like, Stephen? We haven't heard a bit of it yet. Silent Spring with inspiration from Rachel Carson.
I haven't heard it yet either, but in my head it sounds like a very dramatic, I guess you would say, tone poem that takes a long emotional journey from quiet music through very intense music and back to quiet music. It is written in honor of Rachel Carson and the 50th anniversary of Silent Spring, but it's not pictorial music. That is, it doesn't attempt to portray insects or dying trees or, in a Richard Strauss way, try to be very pictorial. It's really more about the emotional life of us individual listeners as we take one of these musical journeys. And in that sense, the book Silent Spring and Rachel Carson's heroic status here in Pittsburgh and all over this country is as good a way into that process as any.
Rachel Carson grew up here. She's a graduate of Chatham University.
Yeah, right.
And you read through her Silent Spring, some of her other pieces too.
I've read it. I read quite a bit to get myself into the mindset, and it was my second reading of Silent Spring. The first time I read it, it was a new book, and I was a new person. I was probably a high school student, and it was on everybody's, to-do list in the 1960s. It was a very celebrated event when that book was published, and then it began to be discussed and attacked, of course, by the companies who were making a lot of money on the chemicals that she was worried about. And so I was very much aware of it, and then 40-some years passed, and I read it again.
So she was one of the first to raise the flag, the question mark regarding pesticides, things like DDT and other pesticides that we're a little bit more careful about using today.
That's right. I was very struck by what a poetic writer she was. There's, of course, real science in these books, but there's also a lot of poetry. And poetry is easier for a composer than science to latch onto. And so I took phrases from the book Silent Spring and from other writings of Rachel Carson and used them as section titles in my piece to suggest different, I would have to call them emotional landscapes. Some quiet music and some very intense music. And then a final section called Silent Spring, in which it is as if all the voices of the string section in the orchestra are singing their hearts out, but they fall silent one by one, and we are left with near silence at the end of the piece.
And have you written any terrific virtuoso music for our principal players?
Well, I hope it's terrific, but I certainly have kept the players in mind. There are a lot of solo turns. The brasses are used quite a lot, but also the solo winds. And the whole string section get to act as if they were individual soloists for the last several minutes of the piece. So
we're going to hear something of interest for our principal horn, William Caballero. Did you have him in mind when you were writing this piece?
Well, I certainly did. I mean, he's one of the great horn players in the world, and it is one of the great horn sections in the world also. So Bill, was very much personally in my mind, and a number of other soloists around the orchestra. It's so nice to put a face and a sound, with those staff lines and those little dots.
What does it mean to be Composer of the Year with the Pittsburgh Symphony, and how's it going for you?
Well, I'm having a wonderful season of it. I'm beginning to think I really know the orchestra pretty well. Some of them as individuals, but particularly the style of playing, the attitudes, the style of rehearsal, the sound of the hall. Some members of the audience, and that's what you always want, I think, is not simply to send it in, but to be part of a community.